Welcome back to Unfiltered Unwound. I'm your host, Gunny T. I'm joined as always by my co-host, Eric Shigaraki. What's up, Eric?
Not a lot. Just, ready to get this show on the road.
I heard that. So, I wanted to ask you a question, man. How's that patio set coming?
Hey, no, actually, you know what? I came home and I finished that bench in the amount of time it took Donna to go to Walmart and come back. She was pretty upset about that.
Yeah. Now, when you said that it was going to take you 15 minutes, did you mean just that bench or did you mean the entire patio?
I meant the bench.
Okay, fair. I'll give you that one. I don't know, man. You sounded pretty upset earlier.
Yeah.
But it won't fucking fit.
It fit. It just, like the quality assurance people at the patio furniture place, they just weren't there that day.
Fair enough. Let me ask you a question, man. We're going to be talking about some mystery shit today anyway. Some mysterious shit, excuse me. You know, I was thinking about this the other day. You know what's kind of mysterious to me?
What's that?
You remember school, right? Obviously.
It's a long ago memory, but yes.
Fair. But we used pencils in school, right? We used pencils all throughout school from, kindergarten all the way up to fucking high school senior class.
Well, I dropped out in the 10th grade, so I can't concur.
Okay, they used pencils until 12th grade.
But I did use pencils in college, so.
All right, fair enough, but still within the academic realm. How often do you use pencils in your adult life? When's the last fucking time that you used an actual pencil? Furthermore, when's the last time that you had to erase some shit?
So, I can comment on this pretty fucking well, actually, because as a fabrication estimator, I use pencils quite often. I prefer using pencils over pens when writing out quotes because I take a lot of notes. There's a lot of things that, you think you got right the first time and then you go back and double check and, you find something else on a print that you didn't see the first time. So, I mean, yeah, I love using pencils.
Okay, fair. I should have thought about your job field and some of the things that you've worked in. But outside of, let's say, fabrication, outside of, let's say, designers, people who design homes, interiors, stuff like that, people who make blueprints, people who use pencils like on a job site for construction, stuff like that. Outside of those realms, how often do you think your average Joe uses a pencil?
I feel like you're trying to make a point here.
I am.
And I also feel like I'm going to make a lot of counterpoints.
Well, that's what you do.
Even outside of the fabrication industry, just about every job that I've ever had, I prefer using a pencil unless it's on a document that's going into a record. Like, when I worked in manufacturing, we did what were called SPC checks, which were statistical process control checks. So like whatever predetermined period of time that they decided, we would have to do a check on the product that we were making. And for those, I would definitely use a pen because in my mind, I didn't want anybody to go back and erase something I had written and change that number or that pass, no pass, go, no go decision.
Okay.
I would also use those forms for accountability. Like if I came across the problem and my supervisor told me to, essentially keep running while fixing it, I would write it out that that's what I was instructed to do, who instructed me to do it, and I would have that individual sign the paperwork, which helped out a lot because when people in those positions try to defy your quality assurance department, they don't want a record showing that it was their decision unless they are confident that it's okay.
Right.
Kind of covering your own ass.
I don't know. For one thing, what brought this thought on in the first place was Gunny Brain, and I mean, you know what it's like inside there. It's a wild ass place. But also, you know, I wondered, as a truck driver, I use a pen for everything that I do. Most of the jobs that I've ever held in my life, I've used a pen. One thing that I kind of got to thinking about was why don't, you know, as a student, as a younger person, you expect to make mistakes. And that's what I feel like the eraser is for. You know, you use a pencil, you make a mistake, you erase it, you fix it. But why don't they start in like maybe starting in 10th grade or maybe 11th grade on teaching kids how to use pens more accurately so that there are less mistakes? Because when you fill out an application or something like that, now granted most applications are online these days anyway, but I can't count the amount of applications that I made a mistake on, and I've just scribbled through it as neatly as I possibly could and then wrote around it, and I probably didn't get that job for that reason. But anyway, just a, you know, Gunny Brain kind of corridor that my mind went down, and I figured I'd ask you about it.
And like, I do agree with you. Like I said, if there's any permanence to whatever I'm writing on, you know, like I'm going to use a pen. And so like, I mean, with job applications, I always made a habit of grabbing more than one so that I could fill out one. And if I made mistakes, go back, scribble it out, fix it. And then I had the second one, you know, for once I was done.
This sounds like common sense and critical thinking, and we don't do that here.
But also to be fair, like when I'm writing, like as I'm thinking, as it comes to mind and I'm writing it down, my handwriting is borderline atrocious. But if I slow down, I can write very neatly and legibly, which is what that second application was typically for. Because if I didn't make any mistakes on the first one, I could still go back and write it neater on the next one.
Do you consider yourself a perfectionist?
I wouldn't say that I'm a perfectionist, but I do know that some people in my life throughout the history of me, I've had many, many complaints about being able to read my handwriting. So just to avoid that confrontation, especially in a job application setting, I would write it out and then do it again. But also, you know, with the history of, you know, like writing songs and writing poems and, you know, doing essays, even math problems. I've always made a rough draft of everything that I did and then went back and even if I didn't make any changes, I at least wrote it down again in a way that it was easier to read.
Right. Yeah, makes sense. I don't know, but you know, just my weird Gunny Brain thought for the day.
All right. So speaking of weird thoughts, what do you know about lemurs?
I know that they are primates. I know that they are cousins to the monkey. I didn't know that until the other day, but I know that now. And I know that one of them lives in Zaboomafoo.
That was Zaboomafoo.
You know, that joke took longer to land. I feel a little bad. So what the fuck is he talking about? But anyway, yeah, that's my knowledge base of lemurs. I know they're kind of cute, and I know they're very monkey-like, which is why I thought that they were directly linked to monkeys.
See, I always felt they favored raccoons or possums more than monkeys.
You know, that's a fair assessment. They do look a lot more like them, but then they jump around and they, you know, go from tree to tree and stuff like primates do, like monkeys do.
Or a squirrel.
Yeah, fair.
So,
what about what you got? What are we talking about here?
Now I'm terrible with names, and I'm terrible with dates, and I don't really keep notes when I hear something that's interesting. So, you know, leave me alone.
I didn't say anything.
But there was some sort of scientist, whether he was an archaeologist or, you know, a zoologist. He started to notice a lot of fossils of lemurs, right?
Yeah.
a lot of different places, like, obviously Madagascar, where they like to move it. But also in India and all the way into New Zealand. Now, as we know, lemurs are not really migratory like birds, so they don't really they don't swim across oceans on their own for any reason.
No, but I mean, if you look at scientific history, I guess you would say, or scientific geography, they do say that we used to be one supercontinent called Pangea.
And that's kind of the direction that I'm going with this. So this scientist, he theorized that it's the Indian Ocean that's south of India, right?
Yes.
Okay. So the Indian Ocean was once held a very large landmass that connected, India with Africa. I don't remember if it was all the way to Australia, but at least close to like the islands of New Zealand. And he named this landmass Lemuria after the lemur.
Huh.
So the theory even suggests that one time the landmass of Lemuria, or however you want to pronounce it, Lemuria, I don't know, once held a great civilization. And this civilization was, one of those that was a little bit more advanced than other civilizations around them, kind of revered. Also theorized that maybe this, goes back to, Anunnaki, which were aliens that, bioengineered humans to mine gold, whatever. That's a different story for a later episode. But there's also another theory that this civilization existed at the same time as the lost city of Atlantis.
Atlantis. So this would be a comparable landmass to the one that Atlantis was supposed to have sat upon?
I have an American education. So my concept of like the size of other continents is very much skewed. I don't really know exactly how large the Indian Ocean is compared to the Atlantic Ocean. So I can't really say, because from what I know of the lost city of Atlantis, the landmass that it sat on spread across the entire Atlantic Ocean. So comparatively, I really don't know if a landmass that, spans from Africa to New Zealand, if that's really close to that same size or not.
Right.
But essentially the same idea.
So this Lemuria is, in your research, is this supposed to have existed around the same time as the Atlantean Empire?
So the theory suggests that they existed at the same time. During this time, they weren't really in conflict, but they definitely disagreed on a lot of key ideas.
So maybe not necessarily in conflict, but they were in contact.
Yes, they did know of each other. They were in communication with each other, but they definitely saw things differently.
Okay. Well, as you know, the first recorded and only, I guess, you can't even really say it's a substance because there's still, as far as I know, no concrete proof. But Plato spoke about Atlantis first. And I'm guessing your Lemuria, was it just one person that had this theory, or was it multiple people? Was it one person that started the brush fire, kind of like Plato did with Atlantis?
So, with it not being, especially not as popular as Atlantis, I really think that maybe there was a small number of people that agreed. Now, modern investigation into the Indian Ocean has given evidence of a landmass being there at some point in history.
Huh. Interesting. Well, here I have an excerpt from Plato's, I guess, his first written, I don't even know what you would call it, not really a record because, again, there has to be some sort of proof for a record, but this is what he wrote on Atlantis, and this is how he told it to the Athenians when he explained it to them. He says, "This power came forth out of the Atlantic Ocean, for in those days the Atlantic was navigable, and there was an island situated in front of the straits, which are by you called the Pillars of Heracles. The island was larger than Libya and Asia put together, and was the way to other islands, and from these you might pass to the whole of the opposite continent, which surrounded the true ocean. For this sea, which is within the Straits of Heracles, is only a harbor, having a narrow entrance, but that other is a real sea, and the surrounding land may be most truly called a boundless continent. Now in this island of Atlantis there was a great and wonderful empire, which had rule over the whole island and several others, and over parts of the continent, and furthermore, the men of Atlantis had subjected the parts of Libya within the columns of Heracles, as far as Egypt, and of Europe as far as Tyrrhenia. This vast power, gathered into one, endeavored to subdue at a blow our country and yours and the whole of the region within the straits. And then Solon, your country, shone forth in the excellence of her virtue and strength among all mankind. She was preeminent in courage and military skill, and was the leader of the Hellenes. And when the rest fell off from her, being compelled to stand alone, after having undergone the very extremity of danger, she defeated and triumphed over the invaders, preserved from slavery those who were not yet subjugated, and generously liberated all the rest of us who dwell within the pillars. But afterwards there occurred violent earthquakes and floods, and in a single day and night of misfortune, all your warlike men in a body sank into the earth, and the island of Atlantis in like manner disappeared in the depths of the sea. For which reason the sea in those parts is impassable and impenetrable, because there is a shoal of mud in the way, and this was caused by the subsidence of the island." That was what Plato said about Atlantis. And as far as I know, after watching several documentaries and doing a fair bit of research, that is the only, I guess, quote-unquote, true recollection of Atlantis. But it sparked a wildfire. Do you believe Atlantis is real or was real?
Yes. Yes, I do.
Does it have anything to do with the fact that after so many years, they actually found the city of Troy, and it was kind of, as a lot of people thought of Plato's excerpt of, Atlantis as kind of a allegorical, tale, kind of almost like a Bible story. It was meant to teach about the dangers of power and overreach and things like that. But, that was what people thought of Homer's epics, the Iliad and the Odyssey. And then they found the actual city of Troy. Is that part of why you believe that Atlantis could have been real, or is there more behind that?
I believe that we've uncovered some evidence of its existence. Now, I don't believe that Atlantis was this, civilization that surpassed the technology that we have today with, flying vehicles and, magic and such. Like
right. The Disney, yeah.
I think the Disney movie kind of made us believe things about the city that never really had substance.
Right.
It was just a lot of us, that was our first look at the mythology behind it. So that was all we had to really go on.
So as far as Atlantis being a more advanced civilization, unlike, what's been dramatized, you would look at it as more like Neanderthal and Cro-Magnon.
Right.
Like they had better weapons, better quote-unquote technology of the time, which was what made them a power, to go out and attempt to conquer.
Right. It was like the first time that, maybe there was a more intelligent. They had a concept of government that, was allowed for prosperity rather than oppression, and essentially, like, maybe they didn't have a church. You know, like maybe people were allowed to think freely in this nation, so that it was able to grow on a technological and scientific direction. You know, right?
Yeah, makes sense. Organized religion tends to come up the works a bit.
Yeah, but
all religious people don't come from me. We believe what we believe.
Right, like I don't think it's the person. I think it's when a religion gives a person power, power is inherently breeds greed, and more
power corrupts.
Yes, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And when you give your religious deities their absolute power, they're going to run with it. I mean, that's just human nature.
Yeah.
And that goes for all forms of government, not just theocracies.
Right. But by that same token, you know, according to Plato's excerpt, Atlantis did eventually overreach. They branched out to try to conquer and were subsequently defeated and then punished by what, you know, I guess the Greeks at the time considered the gods. That Poseidon got very angry at them and then took the island or the nation of Atlantis back into the sea.
And that's one of the theories with Lemuria, was that it was actually their petty conflict boiled over when the Atlanteans decided that they kind of, I guess, changed direction. Maybe they didn't. Maybe they'd always been that way. But they felt that people were a workforce and a resource to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Used, you know. And the nation or the society in Lemuria, they felt that, you know, like, not that, you know, like people should be able to be people and do what they do. And so it created a conflict that resulted in whatever scale of war that at the time could decimate land masses. Now, that theory and my own do not line up, because that theory suggests that Lemuria and Atlantis were far beyond the technology of today.
Right.
I know they had discussed things like the Firestone that created unlimited energy and powered, you know, crafts and weapons that were used to just completely destroy essentially these entire continents. Now, these land masses could have definitely fallen into the ocean through, you know, earthquakes, volcanic activity,
tectonic shifts, things like that.
Right, all sorts of natural disasters could have played a hand. And, you know, I mean, we don't like boring stories.
Right.
And boring stories do not survive the test of time. Like, you can't, nobody cares unless there's something fantastical that happened. You know, I mean, that's like, you know, people look at the pyramids of Egypt. If you know, there wasn't this crazy notion that they were built in, you know, that 22-year span from, you know, like, it's impossible. How did they do it? Well, let's think of ways that they could have. Aliens, levitation, you know, like, Egyptians had some sort of magical artifact that allowed them to, you know, levitate things. You know, I mean, we don't know. And because we don't know, like, we think that we're so much better than our ancestors, because we look back and we know that they exaggerated these stories, these historical documents, but we do that actively every day in current society.
Well, they say part of writing history is hiding the truth.
Yeah. And it's like, winners are always going to exaggerate their win.
Yes.
And when history is written by those people, there's no one to contest it. Especially when you look at, like, nations like, you know, Rome and England and Mongolia throughout history. I mean, like, these people, who was going to tell them that they were lying? Nobody was going to stand up against these powerhouses of government and say, well, you're a liar, because then you were like Galileo. Galileo was put into prison because what he said that the earth revolved around the sun.
Yeah.
And because of that, he was imprisoned. Like,
one of the many things. But to be fair, he was imprisoned by the church.
Correct. But I mean, that's just one of those things that, like, when you make an example out of somebody as, you know, widely known as Galileo, it scares the masses. I don't want to go to prison. I definitely don't want to go to prison, so I'm going to keep my mouth shut. Yep, you're right. Yes, sir. Whatever you say, boss. You know, Atlantis, the main reasons that I think it exists is because of the evidence that we have found recently to support it. You know, we look back to Edgar Casey, who was an American clairvoyant, who literally said, you're going to find evidence of Atlantis off the coast of Bimini in the Bahamas. And, you know, nobody cared. Nobody listened to him. They're like, oh, yeah, sure, buddy. You know, you keep drinking your special juice.
Well, he's from Kentucky, so.
But then what did we find?
Look, yeah, okay, fair. But I don't subscribe as much to him as you do, just because there were so many things that he said that also didn't come to pass, such as, you know, Atlantis was supposed to rise from the depths in the 1960s, and that never happened.
Well, so, I mean, look at how many people put stock into Nostradamus.
Yeah, that's fair. But, you know, again, me and you have had that conversation. Nostradamus wrote his quote-unquote predictions so vaguely that, I mean, it's almost like, you know, somebody that reads horoscopes or does tarot cards. You know, you can find meaning, or you can match up a lot of things to a very, very bland statement, you know, or a very bland prediction, I guess you would say.
Right. But, I mean, to be as specific as Bimini, like, yeah. Are we even sure that this, you know, Kentuckian from, you know, when was he alive, who was born in the 19th century, had been to the Bahamas?
Yeah.
And then we find orichalcum that's not just raw orichalcum, but it's forged orichalcum that's in the shape of rods, which was how Plato described the wealth in Atlantis.
Is that all they found, or did they find other things such as tools and things like that?
As far as I know, they only found the orichalcum.
Okay.
But even then, that's not something that's, you know, widely, you know, discoverable. Like, you can't just go out in your backyard and dig really deep and find orichalcum. Orichalcum is very rare. And especially to find it in, you know, like, not in a raw ore state, that means that somebody had the technology to manipulate this material into what they wanted it to be.
And this is in the Bahamas, you said?
Yes, off the coast of the Bahamas.
Okay, so that's a good distance from the Pillars of Heracles, as they said, which would be what we know as the Strait of Gibraltar.
But even then, like you said, like, so this landmass was supposed to, you know, it span essentially, you know, east to west, the entirety of the Atlantic.
Right.
And Atlantis at one point decided, we are going to expand. So it makes sense to find artifacts of this civilization, you know, on different continents.
That's true. Also, if they were a seafaring race, like let's take the continent theory out of the equation completely and say that, you know, it was just a massive island. But if they were a seafaring race, that would be another way for them to get goods and, you know, quote unquote currency around from place to place.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's like there's definitely evidence of very, very advanced civilizations in history that we can't explain it. like why they were able to do some of the things that they did, like the Antikythera mechanism. I'm probably butchering the fuck out of that word.
I don't even know what the hell you're talking about, but
so this was a 2,000-year-old device made out of bronze that was found in a Roman era shipwreck in Greece in 1901.
Wait, I was going to say, so that would have been forged before the Bronze Age, correct? Or is it around the Bronze Age?
Why you do this? Hold on, let me.
Well, we could both be fucking. I don't know. I thought maybe you knew when the Bronze Age started. You know.
The Bronze Age was from 3,300 to 1,200 BC.
Oh shit. Okay, so.
So like about 1,100 years after the Bronze Age.
Okay.
But from what they've, I guess
we can edit that part out. We'll fix that in post.
what they're calling it, what they're theorizing it, is that this is a mechanical computer that this was literally a calculator, a mechanical calculator that goes back 2,000 years ago when it was built. Well, 2,000 years ago, we'll say, when the ship wrecked. Like, how long did it last before that? Where did it come from? Who designed and built this?
The Dwemer.
So, I mean, to say that civilizations like the fantasized Atlantis or Lemuria existed, I mean, there's evidence to support it. I mean, you know, like I said, maybe not advanced in our eyes, but definitely highly advanced for the time.
Right. Because, you know, I made this point the other day, especially as far as the Egyptians. If they had reached that far, the Egyptians kept records of everything. And the way that it was, you know, fantasized, you know, as far as flying vehicles and glowing rocks of magic and, you know, all these other things, I feel like there would have been records about these things as far as they had reached, especially in Egypt.
Yeah.
You know, they keep investigating the pyramids and they dig, and archaeologists have been in Egypt for hundreds of years, and nothing has ever come up about even the existence of Atlantis, let alone, you know, these advancements of technology for the time.
So, and that's not entirely true.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
We'll set the record straight, damn it.
So the Egyptian god Thoth, right? He is. Hold on. So it's a theory. It's like pseudo history. It's not based in fact. But the idea was that Thoth was an Atlantean, and he came to Egypt with an emerald tablet that gave direction on, you know, such things as how to build the pyramids, like, and be able to transport all of those stones. You know, like all the mathematics that the Egyptians eventually came up with, like, derived from the stone and this deity Thoth. Now,
I was going to say, Thoth was the Egyptian god of writing, wisdom, and magic, and he is credited with the invention of the hieroglyphical writing system that the Egyptians used.
Yeah, and like I said, there's a theory out there that he was an Atlantean.
And maybe not necessarily a god, just way more advanced than the Egyptians of the time.
Right. I mean, they did see him as a god because, you know, I mean, that's what the Egyptians did. As much as I worship cats, I understand why they did
worship cats.
But that's another thing with the Egyptians, is that, like, they were very good record keepers, but how many things did they strike from the record?
Well,
Like,
that's a tale as old as human history.
right. I mean, like, if you look at the plagues that were brought forth by the Jewish God, there's absolutely no Egyptian record of the plagues. But there are other historical records of the plagues.
Oh. So you think they had their own quote-unquote Council of Nicaea?
I mean, either that or it's just we haven't found it yet.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, I mean, like, if you look at what was it, the Library of Alexandria?
Yes.
I mean, such a large percentage of the world's history was lost in the fire. Like, who's to say that history specifically wasn't in that library?
The history of, say, Atlantis and Lemuria.
And the plagues in Egypt. Who's to
Right.
say that, you know, Cleopatra or Mark Antony didn't take those records out of Egypt and, you know, put them in the library and then boom, poof. You know, like timeline-wise, I may be way the fuck off, right?
Yeah, I don't know when the Great Library burned.
Me either. And I don't know.
People, we actually did research for this episode, I swear. We're bringing up things that weren't discussed beforehand.
Well, we just like to talk.
Yeah, indeed.
We just throw out tidbits of information that we heard in passing, and we just mark it off as our own thoughts and feelings.
Because it's the American way.
Yeah, it's ours now. It's mine. I put a flag on it.
So, you believe in Atlantis? I, too, believe that Atlantis was a real place. It's hard to believe in something that you've never seen, obviously, but yeah, that leads me into another thought. Do you believe in the supernatural?
Oh yeah, 100%.
So you believe in things like ghosts and whatnot?
I have to. Like, there's
Expound upon that.
there's no way around it. Like, with thinking about things like how I feel about quantum mechanics and what I've learned about quantum mechanics. Obviously, supernatural things are based in energy. Maybe not on this like observable dimension that we can see, but they are happening. And I mean, it could be residual energy from, you know, a time when a lot of energy was transferred, whatever the case may be. I know that, you know, like, as consciousness is not based to a corporeal form, so the idea that there's an ethereal presence in our reality, I have to believe it.
Have you ever had any encounters? Do you have any quote unquote ghost stories?
Only one, and I could say it's a ghost story, but really it was just weird and I cannot explain it. We lived in a trailer. Pretty much anybody that's been in a double wide trailer knows exactly how the trailer is set up. They're all set up pretty much exactly the same. You walk in the front door and to the left is the kitchen. There's the master bedrooms behind the kitchen. You know, when you walk in to the right, there's a hallway, there's a bathroom, and typically 2 bedrooms. The way that my living room was set up, as soon as you walked in the front door, the back of the couch was on your left, facing the kitchen, and the TV was up against the little half wall that was there. I was asleep in the master bedroom, and I was woken up by what sounded like cartoonish police sirens, and I thought that maybe one of the kids had gotten up in the middle of the night and they were watching TV, and I was going to go in there and tell them either to go to bed or turn it down, whatever the situation was. And when I walked out of the bedroom, all I saw was red and blue lights coming from behind the couch. So I was like, all right, so a toy's going off, right? So I go over and I pick up this little toy truck, and it's just fucking going ape shit. And I try to turn it off, and it won't turn off. So I was like, all right, fuck it, I'll take the batteries out of it. Went to take the batteries out of it, and there weren't any batteries in it. So I just kind of set it back down, and I went back to bed. The following day, I was telling my wife about it, and she, informed me that that truck actually sat outside for about a month and a half, had been rained on, dust from the gravel road had gotten inside of it. She was like, there's no way this thing is still functional. But it is, and it was, and it probably still is, and it's somebody else's problem now. But now, could it have been, like a transference of supernatural energy that caused this motherfucker to fire up? Perhaps. I'm also inclined to believe that there was still potential energy within the toy itself, which is why if you work with heavy machinery, you always lock out, tag out, and after you lock out, tag out, and turn everything off, you try to fire it back up to make sure that any potential energy is gone. Maybe that's what it was. I don't know. But I can't explain it. It creeped me out, and I still remember it to this day.
Well, I have a slew of stories dealing with what I consider to be the supernatural and or ghosts. But I'm going to start mine with a similar story because I think it's very funny and ironic that your wife was involved with both of these, even indirectly. But I used to have this Darth Vader piggy bank, and it was electronic, and it had Darth Vader sitting up on top of it, and he had a light-up lightsaber, and his arm moved, and his whole body kind of shifted back and forth, and it would activate when you would put a coin into the slot, and it would play the Imperial March, and he'd start saying, "You don't know the power of the dark side." And then it would go off until you put another coin into it. Well, I don't remember taking the batteries out of this damn thing. I know that it started going off on its own for a while, so I do remember that I took the batteries out. I just don't remember when I did it. But Donna happened to be over hanging out with me and a couple of our friends, and it started going off again. And I was like, well, shit. So I guess I thought that I'd taken the batteries out, but, at that moment I was like, well, I must not have. So I grabbed it, and you had to unscrew the battery plate on the back of it to get to the batteries. And when I took the plate off, there were no fucking batteries. So that bitch went directly into the dumpster. And if if your theory of built up energy, is correct, then I feel like I got rid of something I wish I had saved, but I wouldn't take any fucking chances. But
right.
So we both have a toy story, I guess you would say. But I also wanted to start off on this one because I've told you this story before, but I'd like to hear your breakdown of it and what you think actually happened. But so this one doesn't involve any ghosts per se, but my mother, my father, and one of my uncles were traveling, and I can't remember. I know when Dawn hears this episode, she'll be able to tell me. She remembers a whole lot more than I do. But I do know that Mama was pregnant with Dawn when this happened, and they were traveling somewhere, and it was really, really cold. That's important to the story because Pop had this really shitty car that they were driving in, and every time he would turn on the heater, Mama would start to get real uncomfortable, real anxious, and she would start to freak out and be like, "Rod, we have to cut off the heater. Cut off the heater. Something's wrong." And my dad was like, well, Gail, it's way too cold to drive without the heater on right now. So she begged and pleaded and told him that something was up, and he got her to agree with like a little system they had in place where they would run the heater for like 10 or 20 minutes, something like that. And then they would shut it off for a little bit longer than that. And so they kind of took shifts running the heater and keeping it off. But she said that every time that the heater turned on, she was uneasy. They stopped at a gas station during this trip, and they all went in to go use the bathroom and I guess grab drinks or snacks or whatever. And my dad forgot that he had left the heater on. And to hear her tell it, they were only in the store for like 5 or 6 minutes. But by the time they came out of the store, the car was an enormous fireball. The whole damn car was burning. And by the time fire trucks got to the car, it had burned to the wheels. Now, that story always creeped me out because how did she know that something was wrong with the car? You know? I always thought that to me felt very supernatural. What do you think?
I mean, like, it's possible. But also, you know, there's the whole intuition thing where, like, where does that come from? Is that a supernatural thing? Is it quantum? Is it internal in some way? Was there a smell that, you know, she was picking up on, but she wasn't sure why? Was there a vibration that she was picking up on? You know, like, there's a lot of things that specifically make humans uneasy instinctively that, you know, we may not even notice, but, you know, like, it's like that feeling that somebody's watching, and sometimes they are. We don't know why we know that, but we know that we know. And I mean, like I said, it could be a lot of things. I mean, like, you know, you got your guardian angel theory. You got, honestly, like, I don't know. I do think it's really weird that they were in a gas station and their car caught on fire and nobody was like, hey, your car's on fire.
Well, unfortunately, I can't ask them any questions about the story anymore.
Because, I mean, as a former gas station employee, if somebody's car's caught on fire, the first thing I'm screaming is, your car's on fucking fire, as I'm hitting the emergency shutoff button to the gas pump.
Well, to be fair, this was in the 1970s, so, I mean, who knows?
Yeah, I don't know if they had the emergency shutoff button or, you know, competent gas station employees. I'm too young for that.
All right, my next story is kind of a two-parter, but, you know, again, when I'm done, I'd kind of like to hear your thoughts on it. Now, a lot of the stories that I'm about to tell happened we lived in the same house, and they happened in the same area. So, on this particular night, I had one of my best friends over, and we had already laid down in my room to go to sleep. And my sister came and practically knocked my door down, trying to get in there, freaking out, saying that there was some strange man looking down at her through her window. So me and Travis shot up out of bed quick as shit because, I mean, number one, her franticness scared us, but also the you know, now there's a potential threat. So we do what idiots of our age would normally do and grabbed two of my samurai swords and ran outside to confront said man staring through the window. And we got outside, and of course, you know, two of my siblings were in tow, Melody included, the one that told me that somebody was looking at her. And I looked down at her bedroom, and there's nothing there. But I walk down the steps and I walk over to the window, and I think I was pretty much the size that I was going to be my whole life at that point, so around 5'8". And I'm looking up at the window. And I looked back at her and I said, buddy, go the hell back to sleep. And she was like, what? And I was like, this dude had to have been 12 fucking feet to be looking down at you through this window. So we go inside, we brush it off, everybody's laughing, making fun of her. She's still scared as shit. I apologized to her profusely for weeks after this, because about a week later, I'm sitting on the back porch smoking a cigarette, and none of the floodlights or anything in the back are on, so it's super dark out there. And then I see what appear to be two glowing red eyes, and that was one of the things that she said, that the dude seemed to have glowing red eyes, which, of course, freaked us out more. But I see what looked like two glowing red eyes, but they're up there. Like, they have to have been at about 10 to 12 feet in the air, and then this shadowy fucking figure walks across the fucking tree line and then disappears into the trees. And I ran back in the fucking house freaking out. I apologized to her. I told my dad that she wasn't crazy, and he laughed it off and was like, y'all are both nuts. Well, what's your thoughts? What are your thoughts on that one?
Well, I mean, it kind of sounds like the Mothman migrated a little bit south down into North Carolina.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, the human brain will tell us something's there to make sense of a shape that it doesn't understand.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, more than likely, maybe you saw something. You know, like, maybe you saw some towering shadow person with glowing red eyes. Possible. Like, I'm not saying that you guys are crazy or that, you know, it didn't happen, because, like,
right.
you know, weirder shit happens, you know?
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, how many times have you been in a dark room and, you know, tried to look at the corner and, you know, saw something move, even though you know there's nothing there?
I scared the shit out of myself in a dark room.
I've learned that I was afraid of the dark when I played Resident Evil 7 in VR, and there was I was already on edge, drinking a little bit, and when everything went black and I couldn't see anything, my heart started fucking racing, and I was like, oh, okay, so I am afraid of the dark.
All right. Next story. So we had a barn out behind that same house. And there are a couple of stories that involve the barn, but the first one I'm going to tell you is the reason that me and Matt were out there in the first place during the second story that I'm going to tell you. But so, and I don't remember who told us this. It was word of mouth. So there were no records on this. But apparently, whoever it was that designed and built the house went crazy, killed his wife, and then killed himself. Or that's what we were told. And the guy's wife's name was Linda. So we're out playing in the barn one day, and in lipstick is written on one of the stalls was Linda. Now, of course, you know, number one, it freaked us out, but it also, you know, there was a lot of blame. You know, why'd you do that? Why are you trying to scare? You know, everybody's blaming everybody else, and nobody admitted that they did it. But nobody believed that, you know, it just magically appeared there. Now, I don't know how much you know about lipstick, but if, you know, you were to, say, draw something in lipstick, after a while, it dries and it cracks, right? That's what you would assume that it would do.
Especially on wood.
Right. This lipstick remained fresh for years. Every time that we would go out there and touch it, the lipstick would be wet. So we tended to stay the fuck away from the barn after that because it scared the shit out of us. Well, fast forward, I'd say, I don't know, maybe a year after that had happened, and I'm telling this story to a group of my best friends, and the most macho bravo of my best friends at that time was like, well, let's go out there and check it out. And I was like, good fucking luck, buddy. And he's like, nope, you're coming with me. We're gonna debunk this right now. We're gonna prove that nothing is going on there. Well, we get to my house, and it's already dark. So I was absolutely not wanting to do this. But we start walking towards the barn, and he's like, you know, I'm going to call Cassie. So he calls his girlfriend, and he's got her on the phone, and we're walking towards the barn. And the closer that you get to the barn, the only thing, you get like this weird feeling, you know, like you get tingles up your spine, your hair kind of stands on end. It's just something about the barn that always did that to me. But we both felt that way. And, you know, we told each other that on the way to the barn. When we get to the opening of the barn and we start to walk through it, and I could hear this happening, you know, because she was being so loud. Cassie starts screaming into the phone, run, get out of there, run. And that's all the fuck we needed to hear. So we take off, and we set like a land speed record getting back up to the house. In the process of getting to the house, he accidentally hung up the phone on Cassie. And then when he calls her back, again, I could hear her audibly crying. Like, she is losing her shit into the phone. So I to this day, I believe that she didn't make this up. But Matt's like, what's wrong? What happened? Why'd you tell us to run? And she's like, well, I couldn't hear y'all anymore. And he's like, what do you mean? She's like, all I could hear was a little girl laughing. Dude, telling you that just now sent tingles up my spine. I will never forget that. Now, there was something about that barn, man. Even to this day. I don't know if it was ghosts. I don't know if it was poltergeist. I don't know if it was spirits of the land, because we did a little bit of digging afterward, and that'll lead into the next story about how the area that the house sat on and the road, like where all these people lived back in our area, used to be an old Civil War battleground. So I truly believe that there could be some residual, I guess, I guess spirits or spiritual activity in that area. But what do you think of that one? What are your thoughts?
None of it adds up.
What do you mean?
It doesn't, I get it that, so old dude that built the house, like his wife's name was Linda, her name's in lipstick. I can't explain that. I wasn't there. I don't know, I never saw the lipstick, never felt the lipstick. All I can take is your word for it. That's fucking weird. Can't really say anything else about that.
Right.
But old dude, old woman, and Civil War soldiers died on this field, and girl on the phone heard a girl laughing. Why the hell is there a little girl?
Yeah, I don't know. But
I feel like you were set up.
You think that they were just messing with me?
I think that he was scared to go in there, and him and his girlfriend made up a story, and he was like, look, when we're about to get in there, I want you to say some weird shit and, be hysterical.
I never thought about it like that. But, I mean, we were already there. Why wait till we got there?
Well, because going inside was the scary part.
Right.
Yeah, it was nerve-wracking to be near it.
Yeah.
But, he didn't want to go in there, and he made up a lie. It's a ruse.
Well, now you got me questioning that whole ass fucking situation. But as far as, the spiritual residual energy or whatever in the Civil War battleground being prevalent, that's where the next story comes into play. Now, it begins with a story that I'm not going to tell yet. Me and you have discussed this story a couple times, and we're still thinking about putting it into a later episode. But it involved a very interesting and dangerous incident between me, my then girlfriend, and her cousin. But that actually led to our breakup, and that's what's going to lead into the next story. So we break up. She lived down the road, and she had a CD that I wanted to get back from her. Now,
Fair.
At the time, I was a teenager, okay? I still didn't grasp the fact that if your ex-girlfriend had anything of yours, CD, hoodie, shirts, whatever it was, those now belong to her, and there weren't any getting them back. So, damn it, I was going to try, okay? So, I drive up there, and I had my sister and my best friend Sterling in my truck at the time. I drive down there to get it. She tells me that she had let somebody else borrow it. So I'm pissed off. So I go flying back to my house. Now, this is a dirt road. The road is big enough for 1.5 vehicles at one time. So any time that a vehicle was coming the opposite way, normally one of the, two cars that were heading towards each other would kind of pull off onto the side to allow one vehicle to pass.
Right.
I didn't have time to do that because I was an idiotic teenager and I was driving 65, 70 miles an hour down a small dirt road. So what I did was I swerved off into the fucking trees. Now, thank God that, number one, I was driving a 1970 something Ford F-150 when vehicles were still built kind of tough, but also that I hit only a bunch of small trees, because we did wreck And there was some damage. I couldn't get the truck started back up, and I couldn't get it pulled out of the trees. But we ended up walking the rest of the way home. Told my dad what was going on. Of course, everybody was pissed at me, and rightly so. You know, I shouldn't have been driving that fast. But my dad was like, well, you and Roddy walk down there and see if y'all can get the truck home, and then I'll see how bad it is in the morning. Okay, fair. So me and my brother set off down the road, and it wasn't too far away from where we lived, but I'd say maybe about half a mile or so.
Right.
And it's starting to get dark. Now we get there, and we get we're starting to try to push the truck off of the trees, and we hear, I don't know if you've ever lived down a dirt road, or if you've ever been down a dirt road. I'm sure you have, but do you know that on a dirt road or a gravel road, normally you can hear a vehicle coming before you ever even see it because of the sound it makes, the tires or whatever it is making contact with the sand or whatnot.
Right.
So we hear what we think is a vehicle coming. We didn't think anything of it because that's a normal thing on a dirt road. You know, that's just dirt road life.
Right.
So we're still trying to get it off of the trees and get it out into the road so I can try to get it started and get it back home. Well, it's getting closer, and it's sounding a whole lot less like a car, and we're not sure what it sounds like yet, but we know it doesn't sound too much like a car, so we're starting to get a little bit freaked out. And I feel like I know where you're going to go with this half of the story, but anyway. So it's getting closer. We're getting a little bit more freaked out. We're like, okay, we got to get this fucking thing out of here. Well, now it sounds like wagon wheels. It sounds like a fucking wagon, and I swear it sounded like we could hear like the sounds of whips cracking. Like, you know, somebody was trying to handle a fucking team of horses and a wagon. At this point, we are freaking the fuck out, dude. He's like, we've got it off the trees, we've got it into the road, and I'm trying to start it. My brother's screaming at me, start it! Start it! I'm like, I'm fucking trying! We get the motherfucking thing started. All of this is important to the story. We get it started. Again, I sped, which, not smart, but we were fucking scared. So I sped down the goddamn road. We turned into the driveway and just kind of left it at the bottom of the hill, because our driveway was a hill. And we booked it up to the fucking house. We about broke the damn door off the hinges getting into the house, screaming to my dad to tell him what had just happened. Again, like with most of these instances, my dad was like, okay, shut the fuck up, y'all are crazy. We didn't think, we were scared, but I mean, nothing else was said about it that night. The next day, my dad goes down the hill with me, and we get the hood up because the whole front end of the truck had been pushed in. We get the hood up. Several of the belts are broken. The front end is pushed into the fucking motor, and he looks at me and he goes, you drove this here? And I said, yes, sir. He said, it shouldn't have started. Explain that one to me, sir.
I'm absolutely not a mechanical engineer. I don't understand the inner workings of older vehicles. My wife's ex-stepdad once started up his 1980 something fucking Ford, and then took the battery out of it and drove it to work. And I was flabbergasted.
Nobody says flabbergasted.
I didn't know the vehicle did that.
I was flabbergasted, say.
So, to tell you your car shouldn't have ran, I mean, I didn't see it. It probably, I don't know what year of car this was. It probably still could have ran without the belts. I mean, I know most belts now in cars are used to power accessories or an alternator.
Yeah.
But I mean, if your battery wasn't dead, it would still start even with the alternator not being charged, your battery would just die. But as long as there was enough use to get it cranked, that was really all that mattered. So I don't know, I think that you and Roddy were a bit hysterical.
We got chased by a fucking ghostly wagon team, okay?
I mean, I've heard much more wilder claims from Zach Bagans and his bullshit. Anybody else feel that? Like, I mean, like, you know, not being there, I can't really say anything. Like, I know, my only real cautionary tale when it comes to the dead, you know, if you have a loved one cremated, don't split up the ashes. I know you want to hold on to a little piece, but don't do that.
You want ghosts? That's how you get ghosts.
Yeah. My mother-in-law, she had a little vial of her mom's ashes hanging from the rearview mirror of her car, and I was outside smoking a cigarette one day, and something started knocking on the inside of that car, like on the glass.
Shit.
And I was like, I'm done with this cigarette.
Ma'am, trying to get out.
Yeah, I was like, I remember I went inside and I walked in the living room and I looked at Angel and I was like, you remember when I told you not to do that with the ashes? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, your mom's in your car. And I think she wants out. Yeah, like, I don't know if that was a ghost story or if that was, you know, like, cause in all fairness, like, there was an acorn tree, that, you know, did have growth over this house, and the roof of the carport was, you know, sheet metal. So, like, the knocking sound could have just been some acorns just falling on the roof. But in my mind, it sounded like somebody knocking on a glass window of the car. And so that was, you know, where my brain went.
Could have been hysteria that
Right.
feel like we were being chased by ghostly wagon teams, and
it could have just been something off in the distance that, you know, you were already upset. I'm pretty sure Roddy wasn't exactly happy with having to come help you push a fucking truck back on the road. Yeah. You know, I mean, typically when people get, you know, like out of their normal rhythm, that they experience things that they can't understand. And I mean, like, you know, who fucking knows, dude? It could have been a whole fucking, you know, Civil War battalion that was coming down the fucking road, and they were coming after you and your you know, confounded
mechanical vehicular.
Yeah, your mechanical abomination that, you know, like, God didn't permit this, and you got to be
even
one of
before. Even before people hated Ford. I get it.
Where's that damn communist? He wants a 40-hour work week.
I have a bonus story here that I just remembered. Now, I don't know necessarily if this one has anything to do with the supernatural. I feel like I know how you're going to explain this one too. And this one also happened when I was very young. I couldn't have been more than maybe 6 or 7 years old when this happened. But I do remember it. This was when my dad was stationed at Seymour Johnson Air Force Base in Goldsboro, North Carolina. And we lived on base housing. And I don't know if this began as a dream. I don't know if this was a ghost. You know, my 6 or 7 year old brain, you know, couldn't really comprehend, I guess. And so for my whole life, this has felt like a very supernatural event. But I remember waking up and I saw my mom, and she was in her nightgown, but she looked very ghostly, you know, like she didn't look like herself, and she was humming. And she looked at me and she kind of beckoned me to follow her. And then she turned around and she sprinted out of my room. And I freaked out because I thought she was running away. So I sprinted right after her. And I mean, I fucking sprinted. And I sprinted nose first straight into the fucking hallway wall. And that's what woke everybody in the house up. Was me almost knocking myself out against the fucking wall. Blood's gushing down my face and I'm screaming. And my mom and my dad, now this is where it gets weird. She was wearing, and she had several nightgowns, but she was wearing the same fucking nightgown that I saw that I chased into the wall. Because she disappeared beyond the wall, and that's why I smashed into the fucking wall. And I don't remember any, I remember them asking what happened, everybody's freaking out, like what the fuck's going on. But to this day, I don't know what that was all about. I don't know if it was just I was sleep running in a dream and fucked myself up, but it's really odd that she was wearing the same nightgown.
I really feel like that was a not quite awake situation.
Yeah.
Like, you were still kind of in your dream cycle. So, like, speaking of, like, stories like this, I have a couple that, well, really I've got, even, like, let's just say that your mom was sleepwalking. And, like, you weren't all the way awake, so you didn't see her, like, take a turn in the hallway and go back to her bedroom, right?
Yeah.
Because I definitely have a sleepwalking story. I want to say that I was 20. It was right before I met Donna, and I was still living with my parents. And I worked third shift, and I was off this night, and I was on the phone with somebody. I really don't remember who it was, but I was on the phone with this person, and I was doing homework for college. And I remember my stepdad would always wake up in the middle of the night. He'd go smoke a cigarette in the living room, and then he'd go back to bed every single night. And, this night was no different, except for, like, his bedroom was right across the hall from mine. And when he came out of his bedroom, he, threw my door open and just stood there in my doorway, naked as the day he was born. It just stared at me and then told me to do my fucking homework. And then he went and smoked a cigarette and went to bed.
What the fuck?
And I just remember when he looked at me and he said, "Do your fucking homework." And I was like, "Yes, sir." And then he left. And like, I knew he was sleepwalking. So like, I didn't like, you sleep naked, you sleepwalk, you're going to sleepwalk naked. You're not going to wake up, put the shorts on, and then walk outside just because, you're just not going to, it's whatever. But still, awkward story, but sleepwalking is weird. I remember one time when I was much younger, my sister's bedroom was right off the living room. And he had woken up to smoke a cigarette, and I guess in his daze, he decided that he had to pee, and he went into my sister's bedroom, peed in her air vent, smoked a cigarette, and went to bed. Weird shit.
He peed in her hair vent.
Yeah. So, when I was young,
oh god.
When I was very young, like 4 or 5, like kindergarten age, I remember the apartment we lived in. Every morning I would wake up. I always woke up before everybody else, and I would run into the living room out of my bedroom. And going down the hallway, there was a half wall with a bar that looked into the kitchen that I wasn't tall enough to see over. So that always gave me kind of like a little bit of anxiety because, I don't know who's in the kitchen.
Right.
But we had a chair that sat up against like the end of that wall. So like if you look down one side of it, you look down the hallway. If you look down the other side of that chair, you were looking into the kitchen. So I had a routine, and every morning I would go and I'd run and I'd jump in that chair and I'd peek around the corner into the kitchen, and then I would turn on the TV and watch cartoons. One morning when I went to look in the kitchen, I saw what my brain said was a ghost. And I remember it vividly, and it looked like a ghost, like a Halloween ghost, like somebody was wearing a sheet and hovering in my kitchen. And
Oh yeah.
I ran back to bed. I covered my head up, I got underneath the covers, and I went back to sleep. But like thinking back, I always expected to see that, and I really think that was just my brain telling me that's what you saw. And whatever. One night, living with my mom, me and Donna lived in the mother-in-law suite that was, used to be the garage, had been transformed into like a whole apartment thing. The woman that lived in the house before us, her mom died in the house. So it was a running joke that Miss Julie haunted the house. She would drink the vodka if you left it out, you know, like she never did anything like, you know, nobody ever said she did anything that was like spooky or scary. She was always just like little stupid shit you just blame on Miss Julie.
Yeah.
I know one night my brother-in-law woke up in kind of a daze and looked up over at the rocking chair that they had down there and said that he saw my mom sitting in the rocking chair feeding my niece. Only it wasn't my mom. It was Miss Julie. She had a presence down there. But one night I was asleep and I kept hearing my name being whispered, like really close, like almost like a yelling whisper. And it just got repeatedly fucking louder until it was just a full-on scream in my ear. And it woke me the fuck up. So, I mean, I don't know if that was supernatural. Because, I mean, like, it's weird. It still happens now, where, like, I'll hear a sound inside of my head that's louder than everything that's around me. I don't know how to make it happen. It's kind of fucking cool. I don't know if it's like, you know, an auditory hallucination. Maybe I'm going a little bit crazy. Maybe none of this is real.
Maybe you're John Travolta from fucking, what was the name of that movie? Phenomenon.
Oh yeah. Maybe I'm in a padded room somewhere and I'm just imagining all of this. And if you know, like, good job, Eric. You're doing great.
Sometimes you got to throw the whole Eric away, you know?
Yeah, right. Exactly. But yeah, like, I don't think that I've ever actually experienced anything for real supernatural. I would love to. I've done plenty of investigations and I've never caught anything, which is a big bummer, you know, like you get set up and you expect to find, you know, even just, you know, a fraction of a second of something and you get nothing. And like, that's why I don't like watching, like, you know, ghost hunters on YouTube or like TV shows, because either they're seriously reaching to have some sort of evidence to keep you entertained, or they're just fucking lying about some shit.
Yeah.
Like, that's why I hate ghost hunters. I can't fucking watch that shit. I was so glad that they got caught. They did a Halloween episode that was supposed to be live streamed, and they were at a Sloss Furnace in Birmingham, and they fucked up when they came back from commercial, and Zach was acting like they were, you know, in the middle of a walkthrough of like this tunnel, and then he was like, you know what, I didn't like that. Let's go back to one and start over. And I was like, thank you, because fuck him, he's a piece of shit.
Oh, reality TV, what can I say, you know?
Yeah, that's why I like Ryan Bergara and Shane Madej from Watcher. They do investigations, but like Shane is a skeptic and Ryan fully fucking believes in it, and they've never really caught anything. Like, they've seen things that are like, that's unusual, but they're never like, this is a full-on ghost, guys. Like, we've got evidence. Like, they're
roll out the ghost trap.
Yeah, right. Like, they're still trying to. They haven't found any concrete evidence yet, and that's like their whole thing, is that they're still looking for it. And I like that. Nick and Ryan from like Nick Crowley and the Nexpo guy, they've got a whole channel where they do investigations. But same thing, they're not staging hauntings. Like, they're honest about the fact that, you know, like, I wish we would have got something, but hey, this was kind of weird, but we can't say what it was because we don't know. Like, we don't have any proof. But yeah, like, if you've got proof of ghosts, I'd love to see it, hear it, smell it, taste it. I don't know, like, whatever you got that's real proof, I think it'd be cool as well.
If anybody, you know, listening to this podcast has any ghost stories of their own, feel free to shoot it to us via email or leave it in the comments on either Spotify or YouTube, and let us know. We'd love to hear about it.
Yeah. And if you ever, there's definitely a place that I want to go investigate, and if you guys are interested in that, let me know. There's a town in Alabama that's close to, it's like right outside of Selma, called Cahaba, that was the original state capital, but it's set up like the whole town is a museum, but they allow people to go into, there's an old church that's from the original city that's sitting there, and they allow people to go in there and lock themselves in and investigate for the night. And I think that'd be cool.
Dude, I'm definitely down for that.
Yeah,
I know a few other people that would probably be down for that as well.
All right, so this time we're gonna do some hot takes on movies. We're gonna both discuss a list of 3 movies, or like types of movies, whatever, that we love, and also ones that we feel that a lot of people love, but we fucking hate. And I'm gonna roll the dice, and I'm gonna let old Gunny pick whether he wants to start with his love movies or hate movies, and I'll follow suit.
All right. Well, I'll start with ones that I personally love that seem to get a whole lot of hate. I guess around the world or whatnot. So number 1 on my list is Green Lantern. Now, a lot of people talk shit about this movie, up to and including Ryan Reynolds, who starred in it. But as far as, the movie itself, I personally thought that he did a great job playing Hal Jordan. I thought that the movie was pretty solid. Were there some things in there that could have been better? Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, you can say that of any movie. But I don't know. I thought that was a pretty solid movie, and I don't know why it gets the hate that it does.
So he also wrote that movie, didn't he?
Do what?
He wrote that movie, didn't he?
I don't know if he wrote it or not. I know that he was involved. I also know that that's where he met his wife, Blake Lively. So, I mean, how bad could it have been,
Fair enough.
But what about you? What's number 1 on your list of movies that you love?
Terminator Genesis. I thought that it was a really good movie. It was a really good continuance of the story, like an alternate timeline deal.
Yeah.
The acting in it was great. I understand that it was it started out as a shot-for-shot remake of the original Terminator, but the movie was fantastic, and it was opened up for a whole new series of movies that would have been just as fantastic. I mean, Matt Smith as the villain. Come on, we need Doctor Who as the American villain.
Wasn't that the one that had Jai Courtney in it?
I don't know. Who's Jai Courtney?
One I'm thinking of. So, did you ever see the movie Reacher with Tom Cruise?
Yes.
Okay, so he was the bad guy's henchman, the super trained guy that Tom Cruise ends up fighting at the end of the movie.
Yeah, he played Kyle Reese.
Okay, yeah, okay, then it's the one I'm thinking about. Yeah, that was a fantastic movie.
Yeah, I remember going to see it in theaters, and me and my buddy Jeff were literally the only 2 people in the movie theater. And I was like, I don't understand why it gets the hate that it gets. It definitely wasn't Terminator 3.
We just kind of pretend that one never happened.
Right.
All right, so number 2 on my list is Dragonheart. Again, all-star cast. Great actors and actresses in this movie. Yes, Sean Connery didn't have any quote-unquote screen time, but he did voice the dragon. I thought that it was a fantastic film. I don't know why it gets the hate that it does.
It was a really good movie when I was 7.
You would have some backhanded ass compliments. Dragons are still cool, Eric. Fuck you.
That dragon wasn't.
That dragon was fantastic. What's your number 2, you piece of shit?
I really feel like Sean Connery did that entire movie over the phone.
You know, what if he did? He's was a fantastic actor.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people don't like this movie, and I may be wrong, but I think that May was a phenomenal movie that really showed a story of this, like, you know, closeted woman finding herself. Like, you know, maybe it was the wrong way to do it, but, I mean, the acting was cheesy.
I've never seen this one.
It's a good one. It's definitely like a, you know, a psychological slasher film. But I mean, it was like it's a cheesy movie, but like it definitely wasn't going to go on to win, you know, like awards and shit. But you know, like for what it was, I mean, it was on par with Teeth. You know, like Teeth didn't win any real awards, but
oh God, Teeth.
It's a good movie.
You know, I guess, but also, man, that movie fucked me up for a good period of time.
Same, but I learned to love it. I've watched that movie dozens of times. It's a good one.
That reminds me of a joke that I'll say off air because I won't be able to air that on the episode. All right, so May, I'm gonna have to check that one out. All right, number 3 on my list, Galaxy Quest. Galaxy Quest, all-star cast. I thought it was a great movie. I thought it was a hilarious movie. Did not do well in box office. Become somewhat of a cult classic, but mainly among, you know, nerds like us. But all in all, not a very, very well-renowned or well-respected movie, but I love the movie. I think it's great.
2 thumbs up.
What's your number 3?
So I'm going to save my number 3 for the end, and I'm going to jump into the movies that I love.
Okay. Oh,
or the movies that I hate.
Okay.
Movies that I hate. I hate Nicholas Sparks movies. I think that
you're not even just selecting one movie. You're selecting an entire genre of movies.
Yeah, because it's all about toxic masculinity and manipulation. Like, I love Ryan Gosling, but he got homegirl to go on a date with him because he threatened to kill himself if she didn't. Like, I feel like all of his movies just take that toxic male character and make them into some kind of fucking, like, romance icon. And no, like, it's bad. It's a bad story. It's a bad message. It's just bad all the way around.
Fair enough. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of any of his movies myself either. Maybe not for the same reasons, but, you know, I just thought they were bad in general. Number 1 on my list of movies that I hate that people seem to enjoy is Transformers: Age of Extinction. Now, I don't know what Michael Bay was trying to accomplish, but I feel like, number 1, the first mistake was leaving Josh Duhamel, Tyrese Gibson, and Shia LaBeouf out of that movie. Their absence was definitely felt. I feel like, you know, the dynamic between them and between, you know, them and the quote-unquote Autobots really made those movies. And I wasn't a huge fan of it. On top of that, you know, Mark Wahlberg, I like him. I think he's a funny guy. He's a good actor. Definitely done some questionable shit in his past, that's for sure. But, you know, we'll leave that for another episode. I don't know. I didn't like Mark Wahlberg in the movies. He didn't seem to fit. And then there was that douchebag that was dating his daughter, and I counted probably about 15 or 20 times that kid said something directly to her dad about the daughter that probably would have ended him. But, you know, Mark's doing his, whoa, guy, I don't appreciate you saying that about my daughter, guy. You know? Nah, man, spinning sidekick right out the side of a plane, you know? So, yeah, not a great movie and not a great start to a new, I guess, era of Transformers movies.
Still better than John Cena. And I love John Cena.
How can you even see him, you know?
I only heard him in the movie, and he didn't sound like he was doing a good job.
what you got? What's number 2?
Tim Burton adaptations.
Oh, I knew you were going to go this fucking route.
Like, Tim Burton makes some pretty decent movies on his own. Like, we can't shy away from Edward Scissorhands, Nightmare Before Christmas, Corpse Bride, like the good movies, really good movies. Man. And then he grabs something that's already been done and warps it into the same fucking universe as every one of his other movies and ruins characters, makes movies that aren't even based on the book of the same name, Alice in Wonderland. Fucking figure it out, Tim Burton. You read the wrong book. Like,
you're such a hater.
and stop putting your wife in everything. She's not a good actress.
So, every time that we have this conversation, I feel like what you're really saying is not necessarily that he makes bad movies. It's just that you hate Tim Burton, you hate Johnny Depp, and you hate Helen Bonham Carter because those are the 2 actors he puts in every movie.
That's what I'm saying, is that I don't hate Tim Burton. He makes good movies. He ruins original material. Like, I'm pretty sure that he's trying to pull an MCU, and eventually all of these characters from these movies that he's made are all going to end up in one movie, and it's just going to be a bunch of Helena Bonham Carters, Johnny Depp, and Winona Riders.
The Burton verse.
Yeah, like I said, I love his original stuff. Like, when somebody gives him an original script, he knocks it out of the park. Like, he pushes out good stuff. I wasn't a fan of 9. It was boring to me. That
I
doesn't
like
make
9. What was wrong with 9?
It was just boring. It wasn't a bad movie. I'm not hating on it. I just was not interested. It's honestly, in the list of Batmans, it's number 2 of the top worst Batman movies. And that sucks to say because I love everybody that's in that movie. But what was it? The fucking George Clooney Batmans are the only ones that are worse.
Well, there was only one of those, to be fair. But yeah, that was.
Wasn't there 2?
No, so George Clooney played Batman once, and Val Kilmer played Batman once, and neither one of those movies did well.
Yeah, but no, I was saying there was 2 George Clooney Batman movies.
Not as far as I know. Let me do a little bit of quick research on the side here.
I thought there was one, and then there was Batman and Robin.
One Batman movie, Batman and Robin, released in 1997.
Okay.
Yep.
I thought that he had a standalone one before they brought in Chris O'Donnell, but okay. I can.
Nope. Chris O'Donnell actually came in on the Val Kilmer one. That was his first appearance as Robin, was in the Val Kilmer Batman. And then, as if you weren't supposed to notice that there was a cast change, it just rolled into Batman and Robin, where Robin is the same, but Batman's different, but he's Batman, so he's the same. Yeah, it was fucking weird. But that was also the one that brought in Alicia Silverstone as Batgirl, and I had the biggest crush on her when I was a young lad.
Yeah.
So, number 2 on my list, Fargo. This movie, as far as I remember, won Academy Awards. Why? I don't... Number 1, the movie itself was hard to follow. By the end of it, I still don't know what the fuck is going on. That Minnesotan accent, now, Minnesotans, I'm not coming at you, but I don't know, man. I felt like, because I've known people from Minnesota, I felt like they tried too hard to over-exaggerate the accent itself. And I hated that movie. That was a terrible movie, but it did very, very well in box office. There are plenty of people today that still love this movie, and I think it is straight up hot garbage.
I enjoy watching it because of the accents. I think that there is a plethora of amazing sound bites in that movie But I do agree that the story is convoluted and like it's just not. There's not enough going on for that movie to be that fucking long.
Right. But it's definitely raining in Minnesota, don't you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh geez.
So you had sex, or no? So you met a guy, you didn't know him, you brought him home, and you had sex with him. Yeah. What the
Oh
fuck
wow.
is happening? That shit was wild.
Like I said, it's a fun movie to watch, but if you actually sit there and try to pay it, like it's cool to have in the background because it's like, oh yeah, but you know, like watching it sucks. It's like Pineapple Express. Like, you know, there's a lot of really funny moments in that movie, but not enough to make it a good movie.
You didn't like Pineapple Express?
Pineapple Express was dumb as fuck. That movie was so fucking stupid. And like, you had to be high to watch it and enjoy it. Because otherwise, I mean, the laughter from being high is the only thing that would carry you to the next funny bit.
Fair enough, I guess.
Right.
Fair enough.
So my final hate movie is the fucking Tigger movie. I hate that fucking movie. And when my oldest daughter was like, you know, a toddler, my mother-in-law introduced her to that movie, and it played in the background of my life for like 2 years straight. And I abhor that fucking movie.
You know, I've never seen that movie, but I definitely feel the quiet rage welling up within you right now. Because for me, that movie was a toss-up between Finding Nemo and Toy Story for the same reasons.
But those movies were good.
It doesn't matter that my kids and the kid that my first wife babysat watched those two movies so much that today, right now, if we had enough time, I could quote those movies to you verbatim, and I fucking hate myself for that.
But they're good movies. The Tigger movie was awful.
So if a movie is good, you could watch it over and over and over and over again and not hate it.
I can recite Jay and Silent Bob's Strike Back right now.
Okay, fair. You got me there. You got me there. Well, I never saw Tigger, but I'll definitely take your word for this one. Just maybe not for the one you're about to pull out of your ass after I give you my last one. But, so my last hate movie, and I'm probably going to catch a lot of flack for this because I know a bunch of artsy and music-loving people who just absolutely love this movie and call it, you know, an artistic masterpiece and a musical, you know, genius and all this other bullshit. But The Sound of Music, I don't get the hype. I don't get why people love this movie so much. What you summed it up in a way I've never heard it summed up. What the fuck was it you said the other day?
Something about I didn't want to watch a family of Aryan super race
Nazis
fleeing from the Nazis while singing songs about freedom or something. Like
that movie was just awful. And, you know, Julie Andrews, I don't know what the hype about her was either. You know, like to me, she wasn't that attractive. Could she carry a tune? Sure, you know. But let's take away, you know, being attractive and being able to carry a tune. She wasn't that great an actress to me. I didn't think she was a great actress. I didn't think the movie was good. I don't know, you know, I'd rather watch Mary Poppins or, you know, Bedknobs and Broomsticks if I'm going to watch a musical or...
Across the Universe all day.
That was a fantastic movie. There you go. Right there.
Now, I don't want to take anything from Julie Andrews. I feel that she made a mistake.
Are you a Julie Andrews fan?
I do enjoy the little bit of Julie Andrews that I remember. But
she played Jane Seymour at one point, didn't she?
I just remember her playing the Queen of Genovia in The Princess Diaries, and those movies were a hoot.
Oh yeah, she did. Okay. I'll give her those. Those were pretty good. Fair enough.
All right.
Yeah. Sound of Music is my last one. Terrible fucking movie. At me, bro.
Just to prolong the suspense for my number one loved movie, I have an honorable mention.
Okay.
And I don't remember what it was.
Drum roll, Steven.
I was literally just thinking about it right before you announced The Sound of Music.
Was it Planet of the Apes? It was Planet of the Apes, wasn't it?
It was not Planet of the Apes. Fuck it. I love Dragon Ball Evolution. I think it was a good adaptation. Was it corny? Yes.
Yeah.
But did you watch the Dragon Ball show? Corny as fuck. Alright? Did it stick true to the manga? No. But neither did the fucking show. It was a good movie.
Was it?
Yeah, it was. And
what makes it so good? Expound upon that.
It was fun. Throughout the whole thing, it was fun. It ignited a nostalgia of being younger, and it was an adaptation, and everybody like thinks that it was supposed to be exactly like the fucking show, and who wants that? Like, the show was so fantastical that to try to make that live action would just be convoluted as fuck, because you'd be watching 30 minutes of Goku charging up. Like, I don't want to see that. Like, and I'm furious with James Marsters, who played fucking Piccolo, because the dude was so excited about the movie when it came out. And he was excited because they were talking about making a sequel. And he got me so jazzed up for what could happen with that movie. And now, because there's so many people out there that hate it, he hates it. And he talks negatively about it. And it's just like Ryan Reynolds with Green Lantern. When Ryan Reynolds read that script, he was excited. When he acted in that movie, he loved it. When they did the preview and he did all of his interviews for that movie, he had nothing but good things to say about it. Now that everybody hates it, he fucking regrets it. Like, get the fuck over it.
But the difference between the two movies is that Green Lantern was actually good.
But that's you. If you ask Ryan Reynolds talks more shit about that movie than anybody, and he was actively a part of making it.
You know, Eric, I'm gonna tell you something that I normally would never say to you, because I've given you so much shit about this movie throughout the years. But the fact that you ride so hard for this awful movie, I have mad respect for that. You are not a fair weather fan, sir. No, you stand your ground. You put 10 toes in when you're standing on business. You said, this is my movie. Fuck everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, I ask anybody who hates that movie to honestly give me one reason why they don't like it. And if it's because Goku fucking slid over the top of that dude's car on top of his head, yes, it's a cheesy martial arts movie.
That was pretty bad.
But tell me that Goku would not have done that.
I mean, maybe, but no, probably not, you know. I don't know. I don't know what you want from me here, man. The movie was just awful. It's an awful fucking movie.
The movie was...
The only good part about it to me was Chow Yun-Fat as Master Roshi. I feel like he nailed that role.
Now, I still remember when they made trailers for the movie and like somebody was talking shit about it when it first came out. And the one thing that stuck in my head that still to this day pisses me off was in the beginning, everybody's argument was that it was so bad they had to create a character to put into the movie to add a little bit of substance. And that character was fucking Mai. And I'm like, did you watch the fucking show?
Yeah, she wasn't a created character. She was in the manga and in the show, right?
Right. She followed Emperor Pilaf.
Yeah.
And she fucking didn't have any martial arts skills. She shot guns. Just like her fucking character in the movie.
Yeah, but her character in the movie did do some martial arts, so.
She did some, but, you know, like, she mostly shot guns like Bulma.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, it wasn't perfect. I get it. But to say that you don't like it because it wasn't exactly what you wanted, that's your fucking fault. I mean, like,
I'm going to do you a solid, Eric. I'm going to watch that movie again tonight just for old time's sake and see if anything's changed since the last time I watched that movie, probably about a good 7 or 8 years ago.
Now, I have kind of ruined myself with that movie because I did turn around and start watching Shameless, and the people that played Goku and Bulma also played a pretty heavy role in like the first couple of seasons of Shameless.
Oh, yeah?
And so, like, to separate those characters is going to be kind of difficult for me. But yeah, like, I mean, whatever. You know, fuck it. I like that movie. It's out there. Let the hate flow through you.
Good. Good. I feel like this is a pretty good place to wrap things up.
Yeah.
Where can they find you on the internet if they want to contact you, Eric? And also drop our email too, so that
check this shit out. We're on fucking Spotify. We are on fucking Instagram. I don't even have an Instagram, but we have a fucking Instagram. We're going to be on TikTok as soon as Gunny does that because I try to stay away from TikTok because it takes a lot of my life away because I get sucked into it. It's an addiction. I stay away from it. I'm on Facebook. Yeah, like, I mean, you know, my name is not Eric Sugar Rocky. My name is Eric Sugru. I know that's a little bit difficult to spell, but if you figure it out, hey, send me a friend request.
Oh, why don't you just go ahead and spell it for the fans there, Eric?
No, it's a task. Like, it's a trial thing. What the fuck?
Yeah. Somebody dying over there?
I got angry cats.
Hey, y'all quiet down. We're trying to end the show over here.
I think Biscuit found Clementine.
So what is our email to the show? How can they contact us if they want to tell us stories, if they want to, you know, drop their ghost stories or anything like that? How can they send us an email?
So they can send us an email at, give me one moment. I got you guys. I got you. Our email is unfilteredunwound@gmail.com. I don't know why I didn't remember that.
You know, that's our editor-in-chief right there. Just doing the shit that he does. Guys, you can find me at Douglas Gunny Terrell on most forms of social media. Anything else, you can normally find me at Lost Fox. Thanks for listening. If you guys want to give us a like and a subscribe, definitely share. Leave us a comment. We live for that kind of stuff. It also helps the show grow. Tell your friends, you know, let's get a lot more people listening to this so we can bring you better content. We can get better equipment, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And, remember guys, it costs money to eat out, but you know what's free? To not be a piece of shit. Y'all have a good one.